Most people waste their lives, and they don't even realize it. Why? Because they refuse to discipline themselves. In this motivational speech by Jordan Peterson, you'll uncover the secret most people ignore, the key to transforming your life. But here's the catch. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. Keep watching, because missing this could mean missing your moment to change everything. In your book, you wrote that there is no faith, no courage, and no sacrifice in doing things that are merely convenient. What would you say to those who feel trapped in careers they dislike, too afraid to take risks and pursue something meaningful? The first thing I would say is that you should be afraid of taking risks and pursuing something meaningful, but you should be far more afraid of staying in the same miserable situation. There is always a price to pay for sitting there in suffering. You might argue, the devil I know is better than the one I don't. But don't be so sure of that. Time waits for no one. If you're unhappy in your current job and do nothing about it, in 5 years you'll be even more miserable and significantly older. Life doesn't pause while you hesitate. It marches on, and the cost of inaction compounds. But isn't pursuing something meaningful a luxury? Many of our audience members have families, children, bills, and debts. Doesn't chasing meaning require resources? I don't think so. And let me be clear. I'm not talking about pursuing what makes you happy. It's not a luxury to chase happiness. It's a moral obligation to pursue what you find meaningful. That doesn't mean it's easy. It may demand sacrifice. If you're contemplating a career change and you have a family, children, and a mortgage, those responsibilities don't disappear. You can't simply declare, "I hate my job, so I quit." That's not a viable strategy. What you can do, however, is start asking yourself some tough questions. This job is draining my soul. What am I going to do about it? Maybe you need to find another job. Perhaps you're thinking, no one will hire me. Then maybe it's time to update your skills, polish your resume, confront your fear of interviews, or improve your social skills. This isn't just about acting. It's about acting strategically. If you want to change your career, you must do it intelligently and responsibly. And yes, that might take a few years of dedicated effort to get it right. We are human beings. We are born to wrestle with the world, to face its realities. Challenges are not obstacles. They are the very fabric of growth. The best way to embrace a challenge is to identify those that will strengthen you. You don't want to stay safe, you want to become strong. Strength doesn't come from avoiding discomfort, but from confronting the challenges that are just within your capacity to overcome. This is how you shape your destiny, by accepting the hardships of life and emerging stronger because of them. Will you fail? You might. Will fortune sometimes turn against you? Absolutely. But this is your best shot. Many people have achieved extraordinary success after catastrophic failures. And I don't say this lightly. I am fully aware of what life can do to people. You can live a good life and still be struck by cancer, leaving you dead 6 months later despite every heroic effort you could muster. But that's not the point. Life is bounded by death, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't rise to its challenges. Growth comes from confronting difficulties, and in doing so, you reduce the overall suffering in the world. That is what makes the struggle worthwhile. That is what gives life its meaning. And so, even if you're afraid, and it's natural to feel fear, don't let it paralyze you. Fear, in its own way, is a signal pointing you toward what matters. It arises because what's at stake is meaningful. The key isn't to avoid fear, but to acknowledge it and move forward anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. Think of the people you admire most. Are they the ones who played it safe their entire lives, avoiding risk and clinging to comfort? Likely not. They are the ones who faced adversity head-on, who pursued something greater than themselves even when the odds were stacked against them. They inspire not because they succeeded without struggle, but because they succeeded through struggle. You don't need to have all the answers today. You don't need to know exactly where the path leads. But you do need to take that first step. Life is not a straight road, and you will encounter setbacks, surprises, and detours. The point is not perfection but persistence. Every small action you take toward a meaningful goal is a step toward becoming who you are meant to be. So, if you're stuck in a job or a life that makes you miserable, don't let fear dictate your choices. Instead, let it inform them. Use it as a compass, not as a cage. Start small, but start. Update your skills, network, or explore opportunities. Recognize that you are not powerless. The steps may be difficult, but they are necessary. And in the end, they will be worth it. This is the paradox of life. The more willing you are to confront its difficulties, the more meaning and fulfillment you will find. The strength you build in facing challenges not only improves your own life, but also allows you to contribute to others, reducing suffering in ways you may never fully see or understand. That, perhaps more than anything, is what makes the struggle meaningful. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Why? Because you need a system for self-improvement, a target to aim at. When you compare yourself to others, especially those who have already achieved great things in their fields, you will always fall short. So, in the final analysis, who is the person you should strive to surpass? The answer is simple. You should aim to be better than who you were yesterday. You must continually try to do this because you are your own best measure. You understand your strengths, weaknesses, and limitations better than anyone else. If you want to compete fairly, you should compete with yourself. When you improve, you are essentially competing against your lesser self. But what does this lesser self look like? It's the part of you that harbors resentment, bitterness, aggression, and a desire for vengeance. The traits tied to a negative mindset. These characteristics hinder your ability to make progress as you navigate life. This is why I emphasize the importance of personal responsibility so strongly. Personal responsibility means taking ownership of your growth. It means striving to be better than you were yesterday in ways that you can realistically manage. To do this effectively requires humility. You might think, I'm deeply flawed. I have so many issues. Can I ever be as good as someone else? But that's not the right question. The right question is, can I be better than the flawed version of myself today, tomorrow? And the answer to that is yes. If you are humble enough to set manageable goals, you can absolutely be better. You may wonder what the right way to live in this world is, assuming such a way exists. It isn't about rigidly adhering to a set of rules. Instead, it's about striving each day to surpass the version of yourself that exists now. The beauty of this approach lies in the fact that the meaning of life can often be found in that very struggle. This concept is particularly vital because life is inherently tragic and challenging. Deeply tragic and challenging for everyone. On top of that, it's tainted by evil. No matter how bad things already are, there is always some foolish or malicious act committed by you or others that can make them worse. That's the reality of life. To counterbalance this, you need something meaningful to hold on to. Constant exposure to tragedy, compounded by betrayal and malevolence, can lead you toward bitterness and despair. This is especially true if you are the cause of your own suffering. When that happens, everything becomes even harder to bear. You need a reason to rise above bitterness and resentment, a reason that will keep you moving forward even on the worst days. That reason is the pursuit of something meaningful by your own definition. It's the reason to get out of bed when everything feels unbearable because you know you have something worthwhile to do. So, what is the best thing you can do? It's surpassing yourself, the wretched, unhappy version of who you are now. Meaning is found in this effort, and meaning is inherently tied to responsibility. I've often tried to clarify that life is difficult and stained by betrayal and malevolence. These realities can easily make you bitter. To counteract that bitterness, you need meaning. And meaning doesn't come from entitlements or fleeting pleasures. It comes from responsibility. You bear responsibility for yourself. Take care of yourself, and if you do that well, you will have enough to care for your family. If you manage both, you will then have enough to contribute to your community. These are heavy burdens, but when you shoulder them, you find meaning in the process. The best way to bear these burdens is by continuously improving yourself. In that unending progress, you will find meaning. It's about letting the old version of you die so that a new, better version can emerge. Even if everything in your life seems fine now, the future holds its own challenges. Illness may strike, a loved one may fall sick, a cherished dream may crumble, or your career might face instability. The storms of life will come. Catastrophe is an inherent part of existence, and you must be ready for it. This readiness stems from the ongoing act of improvement, from refining your character so that you are equipped to face the inevitable. It's not about reaching perfection. It's about striving. When you focus on becoming better than your previous self, you build resilience, develop strength, and cultivate a sense of purpose. This gives you the fortitude to endure and grow, even when the tides of life turn against you. In those moments of hardship, what will keep you grounded isn't comparing yourself to others or lamenting your misfortune. It's the realization that you've done the work to prepare. You've grown stronger. You've equipped yourself with the tools to handle adversity. And as you keep striving, you'll find that life's meaning isn't in the destination but in the journey. One step, one small improvement at a time. Ultimately, this journey isn't just about you. By improving yourself, you contribute to those around you. You become a source of stability and inspiration for your family and community. This ripple effect of personal growth amplifies your ability to make a positive impact. And it all starts with the simple yet profound decision to be better than you were yesterday. That choice, repeated daily, is how you find purpose in a world full of challenges. How do you prepare yourself for life's inevitable challenges? The answer lies in finding a way to live effectively, even in the harshest circumstances. You have the ability to pull yourself out of the mud, step by step, much like a fighter who has been knocked down. Instead of blaming the referee or lamenting the situation, they use their time wisely, analyzing what went wrong to improve for the next round. To make genuine progress, you need the right attitude. The most strategic position is to ask yourself, where am I falling short, and how can I fix it? This is something within your control. The truth is, you are not perfect, but you can work toward being better. Both the imperfection and the potential for improvement are within your reach, as long as you set your goals low enough to be achievable. This doesn't mean you shouldn't have goals or aim high. It means you need to accept that starting with a manageable goal is crucial. Early on, these goals may not seem glamorous. If you're in a bad place, the goals you can accomplish tomorrow won't look heroic. But they're far better than doing nothing or sinking further into bitterness and blame. Most importantly, they are achievable and safe, providing a foundation to build on. The fascinating thing about small steps is that they accumulate. One small step today can prepare you for a larger step tomorrow, and the process builds momentum over time. If you stick with it for 2 or 3 years, you'll be astonished at how far you've come. I've met many people who said they began their transformation by doing something as simple as making their bed. They say it changed everything. And yes, it's a small act, but it signifies a decision to aim upward. Taking that first step, even something as basic as tidying your bed, is an act of heroism because it signifies a commitment to improvement. Humility is key here. You have to lower yourself enough to face the chaos around you without pretending you're above it. Gratitude becomes essential. You start to appreciate what you have, take care of it, and put things in order. Gradually, everything begins to improve. One reason people respond positively to what I've said in lectures and books is that I don't tell them they're fine just as they are. I tell them they can be much better, and this realization often brings relief. Imagine being in a dark and terrible place, and someone tells you, "You're fine just the way you are." How do you respond to that? You'd likely think, "No, I'm not fine. I'm suffering, and I'm desperate." If this is all there is, what's the point? You shouldn't tell a young person they're fine as they are either. They're not. A 17-year-old has another 60 years ahead of them to improve. They can become incomparably better in countless ways. In their journey of becoming better, they will discover life's meaning, which acts as a counterweight to suffering. The key, however, is discipline. You must choose a disciplined path, though the specific path matters less than the choice itself. The rule doesn't have to be rigid, like follow this particular rule. Instead, it can be broader, follow some rules. This is a universal principle. Discipline is non-negotiable. The question isn't how you begin, but whether you begin. I often tell young people, I don't know what you should do, and that's okay. Nobody does. Just start doing something. Take the best plan you can come up with and act on it. It won't be perfect, it may even change as you go. But that's part of the process. The plan will evolve partly because, as you pursue it, you'll become more disciplined. Discipline breeds wisdom, and as you grow wiser, you'll create better plans. What starts with confusion and uncertainty eventually leads to clarity and progress. This cycle, starting, improving, and refining, transforms you over time. You might begin by tackling simple, manageable tasks. Perhaps it's organizing your living space or addressing minor habits. But as you grow more disciplined, you'll find yourself capable of addressing bigger challenges. Each step forward builds confidence and momentum, empowering you to take on increasingly meaningful goals. Life's unpredictability ensures that hardships will arise. Even if everything is perfect today, there will come a time when things go wrong. An illness, a loss, a failed dream, or a career setback. Floods will come. Catastrophes are an inevitable part of life. Preparing for them starts with small victories, the humble steps that strengthen you incrementally. By starting small, you create a foundation to face adversity with resilience. It's not about solving all your problems at once or expecting life to be fair. It's about taking responsibility for what you can control and finding meaning in that responsibility. Through discipline and consistent effort, you grow stronger, wiser, and more capable of weathering life's storms. Ultimately, this approach is not just about survival, it's about thriving. As you improve, you'll not only lift yourself but also positively impact those around you. The act of putting your own life in order has a ripple effect, inspiring and benefiting others. And it all begins with that first small, humble step. When you begin implementing an imperfect plan, you gradually accumulate wisdom through the process. This allows you to adjust the plan and improve yourself step by step. Imagine you have $100,000 to buy a house. You find one, but it's in dire need of repairs. That's all you can afford. Will you pretend the house is flawless, or will you examine its faults? The rotting wood, broken plumbing, malfunctioning stove? This kind of inspection is tough but essential. To do it right, you must understand that you are not your problems. Most importantly, you are the person who can confront and resolve them. This is at the heart of the heroic narrative. The hero faces terrifying chaos, masters it, and transforms it into something meaningful. It's the universal human story. The challenge lies in confronting what you'd rather avoid. To grow, you must identify and address the parts of yourself that need to be shed. Especially when you're starting from a difficult place, a significant portion of your being, perhaps 95%, might need change. That's an uncomfortable realization. However, if you can accept that you're capable of overcoming these flaws, you'll find the courage to critically examine yourself. I faced such challenges of faith personally. My daughter battled severe illness when she was young, particularly during her teenage years. She suffered from juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which destroyed her hips by the time she was 16, requiring replacements. Her ankle was next. She spent 2 years walking on broken bones, heavily reliant on opioids to manage the pain, often barely conscious. Nothing tests your faith more than watching an innocent child endure profound suffering. This experience, and others like it, inspired reflections in my writing about coping with such crises. We all face moments of extreme difficulty. A loved one's illness, financial devastation, or personal loss. One of the most practical strategies in such situations is narrowing your time frame. Sometimes you can't think about next week or even tomorrow. The weight of the present feels unbearable. In those moments, focus on now. Shrink your time frame to a span you can endure. If you can't face the coming week, focus on the next day. If the next day feels overwhelming, focus on the next hour. And if even that feels impossible, center yourself on the next minute. Humans are remarkably resilient. If you confront life directly, you'll discover that you can endure far more than you think. What's more, you can do so without succumbing to corruption or losing your sense of self. When enduring hardship, it's crucial to stay alert to life's beauty, even in the smallest, most unexpected forms. Look for glimmers of light, like crystals sparkling in the darkness. When everything feels bleak, search for what remains beautiful, something that nourishes your soul. Shrinking your focus to what you can appreciate in the moment, and being grateful for it, can carry you through the darkest times. If fortune smiles, you may emerge not just intact but triumphant. And even if you don't succeed, perhaps you'll limit the outcome to tragedy rather than descending into complete despair. the distinction between tragedy and hell is vast. In the worst circumstances, you can choose to keep the suffering from spiraling into chaos. For instance, there's nothing worse than standing at the bedside of a dying loved one and witnessing arguments among family members. Death is tragic enough. It becomes unbearable when conflict and bitterness are added. Knowing how to face such moments with grace and composure can prevent the tragedy from escalating into something far worse. The critical point is that if we don't actively make terrible situations worse, we can often bear life's inevitable hardships, and perhaps even improve the world. This effort requires an ongoing commitment to understanding oneself and navigating life with intention. In crises, self-awareness and deliberate action are powerful tools. They enable us to face challenges constructively and even find opportunities for growth. Avoiding blame, bitterness, and self-pity allows us to act with clarity. Whether the situation involves repairing a home, mending relationships, or managing personal suffering, the process begins by acknowledging the problem without becoming overwhelmed by it. This doesn't mean minimizing pain or pretending everything is fine. Instead, it's about recognizing the beauty and strength in addressing what's broken. It's about finding meaning in the act of repair, whether of a house, a relationship, or oneself. Even when life feels unbearable, remember this: you have the capacity to endure. You can confront the chaos and transform it into something better. You can choose to make tragedy bearable instead of allowing it to devolve into ruin. This choice requires courage, patience, and a commitment to growth, but it's within everyone's reach. Through these efforts, not only do we improve our lives, but we also contribute to a better world for those around us. Ultimately, this process isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. Whether you're taking your first steps towards self-improvement or navigating a profound crisis, the journey is what matters. In facing challenges, you learn, grow, and rediscover the human capacity to overcome. And in that discovery lies the essence of a life well lived. Life changes over time. At 26, you might think you're destined to become a billionaire. But then you meet someone at a bar, fall in love, and your priorities shift. Later, you have children, and everything changes again. Life is in constant flux, and you must continually rediscover what drives you. Not because someone is watching, not because it's what your parents expect, and not because it's what you once declared you would do. Be as honest with yourself as you possibly can, even though that's a tremendously difficult struggle. Dishonesty with yourself creates vulnerability and unhappiness. Honest conversations have the power to save lives. When you meet a good psychologist, they guide you through such a conversation. This is what's wrong in my life. This is why. Here's how I might fix it. And here's the brighter future I can work toward. That is the goal of honest dialogue, to find a path that makes things better. Many people resist ideas about discipline and personal responsibility because they recognize they've fallen short of those ideals in their own lives. Instead of reflecting inward, they attack the message or the philosophy. Rarely do they pause to ask themselves whether their negative reaction stems from knowing, deep down, that they're in the wrong. Few are willing to take a serious look at their actions and thoughts. The process of becoming more honest with yourself starts here. This shift helps you make better decisions and improve your life over the long term. It's not glamorous in the short term, but it puts you in a far better position. Start by stopping what you know is wrong and what you can stop. You don't need to understand everything about goodness or truth to do this. There are undoubtedly things you're doing that you know aren't good for you, and you have the power to stop them. Once you do, your perspective will become clearer, and other things that need change will come into focus. Repeat this process, and over time, you'll move away from what's wrong and harmful. Discipline is the foundation of this transformation. It doesn't have to start with monumental acts. It can begin with small, deliberate changes. Discipline may start with something as simple as waking up early, but it doesn't end there. Discipline is the root of all good qualities. It's exercising every day to become stronger, more agile, and healthier. It's mastering your emotions so you can make sound decisions. It's doing things you don't want to do but know are beneficial for you in the long run. Discipline means choosing the hard road, the uphill path, to do what's right. It's tempting to ignore discipline, to avoid facing the realities of your choices. But choosing the easier path often leads to regret and stagnation. It's the disciplined person who grows stronger, more capable, and more prepared to face the challenges life inevitably throws their way. Discipline doesn't mean punishing yourself or living joylessly. It means aligning your actions with your values and striving for improvement, even when it's difficult. Consider the value of stopping harmful habits. You don't need a grand plan to transform your life overnight. Begin by identifying one thing you're doing wrong that you can stop immediately. It might be a habit, a behavior, or even a pattern of thought. Stopping that one thing clears space for clarity and self-awareness. It allows you to see the next step forward. This iterative process of identifying and addressing what's wrong creates a gradual but meaningful shift toward a better version of yourself. Discipline extends beyond self-control. It's a form of self-respect. When you exercise discipline, you acknowledge your potential and honor it by taking actions that align with your goals. You might not feel like waking up early, working out, or tackling a difficult task, but doing so reinforces your ability to rise above fleeting emotions and focus on what truly matters. Life's challenges are inevitable, and discipline is the tool that helps you navigate them. It's not just about surviving hardships. It's about growing stronger because of them. Discipline transforms suffering into growth, setbacks into lessons, and goals into achievements. It's the thread that connects small daily efforts to long-term fulfillment. Ultimately, discipline is about taking responsibility for your life. It's about deciding who you want to be and committing to the actions that will get you there. It's about facing the uncomfortable truths, making tough decisions, and staying the course even when it's hard. And in that process, you don't just improve your life, you build a foundation of strength and resilience that benefits everyone around you. Jordan Peterson's inspiring speech about self-discipline and the importance of confronting life's challenges left a lasting impression on me. It gave me the clarity to reflect on my own habits and choices. And now, I want to share a personal story about how I applied these principles to my life. A few years ago, I found myself overwhelmed and stuck in a cycle of disorganization and frustration. My days lacked structure, and I was constantly chasing tasks without ever feeling accomplished. It was exhausting, and I knew something had to change. I decided to start with something small, something that wouldn't intimidate me or add unnecessary stress. So, I made a simple commitment. Every morning, I would make my bed. At first, it felt like an insignificant act, almost laughable considering the larger problems I was facing. But that single action gave me a sense of control and accomplishment at the start of each day. It set a tone of order amidst the chaos. And, as I stuck to it, I noticed a subtle but profound shift in my mindset. I began to believe that small changes, when done consistently, could lead to bigger transformations. Encouraged by this progress, I moved on to organizing my workspace, which had been cluttered with papers and random items for months. Clearing that space didn't just make it easier to work, it gave me mental clarity. I felt lighter, more focused, and even more motivated to tackle other areas of my life. It was as if each small improvement fueled the next step forward. The real test came when I decided to confront a long-ignored issue, my finances. For years, I had avoided dealing with my debt because the numbers overwhelmed me. But instead of trying to solve everything at once, I broke it into manageable steps. I listed out my debts, tracked my expenses, and created a simple budget. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of doubt and setbacks along the way, but slowly, I began to regain control. Each payment I made felt like a victory, a reminder that even the most daunting challenges could be tackled one step at a time. During this journey, I discovered the importance of finding joy in small moments. On tough days, I would pause to appreciate the little things. The sound of rain, the warmth of a morning coffee, or the satisfaction of completing a single task. These moments became anchors, grounding me when life felt overwhelming. I learned to find beauty in the process, not just the outcomes. This process of self-discipline didn't just transform me, it also affected those around me. I became more present and dependable for my family and friends. My improved focus at work inspired my colleagues to adopt better habits. These ripple effects reminded me that personal growth is never just personal. It extends to everyone we interact with. Reflecting on this journey, I've realized that meaningful change doesn't come from grand gestures or overnight success. It starts with small, intentional actions, things you can control and build upon. So, what's one thing you can do today to take a step toward your best self? Maybe it's organizing your desk, committing to a daily walk, or simply turning off your phone for an hour to focus on what matters most. If the story resonates with you, let it serve as a reminder that growth is possible, no matter where you're starting from. Begin small, stay consistent, and trust that each step will lead you closer to the life you envision. If you've found this helpful, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Together, we can continue exploring ways to overcome challenges, find meaning, and create lives filled with purpose. Join a community committed to progress and positivity, one small step at a time.